Higginbotham said. Frank frowned at the mention of Brian. Who was this man, and how did he even know Frank had a son? "You spoke to me about putting your son in our school," Higginbotham reminded him eagerly. "The Lexington Avenue School, or rather the Institution for the Improved Instruction of Deaf-Mutes. The name's so long, we just call it Lexington Avenue. But you already know that." Now Frank remembered. He'd visited the place when he'd been trying to decide whether to send his boy to school at all. Finding out Brian was deaf had been a shock, but not as much as it might have been. Until then, he'd believed Brian was simple-minded and would have to be cared for his entire life. Now he'd enrolled him in a school where he would learn to read and write and eventually be able to learn a trade. But it wasn't Mr. Higginbotham's school. "I remember now," Frank said, deciding not to mention that he'd decided against the Lexington Avenue School. "Is that why you asked for me? Because we met before?" "Well, yes, but, I thought you might be more... Mr. Wooten, he was very interested in our work, a great champion for the deaf, tireless, and now..." His voice broke, and he pulled out a handkerchief and pressed it to his lips. "You were friends with Mr. Wooten?" Frank asked. "Oh, yes," Higginbotham said, using the handkerchief to mop his face. "Well, not friends exactly, not socially. Acquaintances, I suppose you would say. His daughter is one of our students, and he has been a great supporter of the school. He serves on our board, and he's been an advocate for—" "Mr. Higginbotham found the body," Sullivan reminded Frank, eager to get on with it. "How did you happen to do that?" Frank asked with interest. "We had an appointment," Higginbotham said, "and when I went to his office, there he was." He grew even paler than he had been. "Why was he in his office on a Saturday afternoon?" Frank asked. "He would come in at all hours," Higginbotham said, "especially if he was seeing people about the school. He didn't want it to interfere with his regular business hours, you see, and he didn't want his family bothered at home." "Did you see anybody else when you got here?" Higginbotham's eyes grew wide. "Oh, dear. I didn't think of that. I could have seen the killer." Now he was chalk white, and Frank wouldn't have been surprised to see him keel over in a dead faint. "Why don't you go sit down and wait for me? I've got to look around, and then I'll be back to ask you some more questions," Frank suggested. "Oh, yes, of course," Higginbotham agreed weakly. "I'm only too happy to help." Sullivan was calling a uniformed cop over to escort Higginbotham back into the room where he'd been waiting. Frank could see now that it was some sort of conference room, with a large table surrounded by chairs. Higginbotham didn't object to the assistance the cop offered, and Frank and Sullivan were finally able to continue on their mission.
"I already questioned him," Sullivan explained as they moved down the corridor. "He didn't see anyone in the building, and he said the body was cold when he got here. So I'm guessing the killer was long gone."
"You're sure he didn't do it himself?" Sullivan shook his head.
"If you'd seen him when I got here, you wouldn't even ask. He was almost crying, and white as a sheet. Had some blood on his shoes, from stepping in it. You'll see the footprints, but none anywhere else. And the killer would have had some blood splashed on him at least. See for yourself."
They'd reached the last door at the end of the hall, and Sullivan stood back and allowed Frank to enter first. He could smell the blood the instant he stepped through the doorway, the sharp, metallic scent that you never forgot once you'd smelled it. The body lay on the floor, in the middle of the room, in a heap, just where the man had fallen. A pool of blood had formed around the ruined head, congealing now in the autumn heat.